Hello everyone, welcome back to Paint Some Happy Trees. This is our third session of the program. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining. If you're a return painter, welcome back. I'll get all the housekeeping stuff out of the way first. Just wanted to put it out there that this program in its inception, we were going to specifically paint Bob Ross paintings. However, after finding out about fun copyright laws, we aren't able to do that. So I'm going to be painting some things that I have been inspired by Bob Ross paintings, or maybe some techniques that he uses, but not explicitly a Bob Ross painting. If you would rather go find a Bob Ross tutorial on YouTube, or maybe look at a picture in a book, I absolutely think that you should do that. That's completely fine. If you want to follow along with what I'm doing, that's completely fine too. Or if you want to paint something completely, totally, wildly different and nothing to do with trees, also completely fine. So anything you want to paint, please feel free to do so. You do not have to follow along exactly as I do in the video, or if you want to, that's also okay. If you want to share your finished product with me, whether it be from this session or any previous sessions if you've done them, please do. I just think it's fun to see what everybody's come up with, but you absolutely do not have to. This is just for fun. It's just for you. So hopefully by now, if you're watching the video, it means that you've already picked up your supply kit from either Central or Ostimo, whichever branch you chose when you registered. And if you've looked at it, then you'll notice that for this session, we are painting some tiny trees. I found these teeny tiny easels with teeny tiny canvases, and that is what we will be using to paint today. I think it's 3 by 3, maybe 4 by 4. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's tiny. So along with our canvas being tiny, we are also smaller portions of paint, because I just don't think we're going to need as much as the large cups of paint that we've used in previous sessions. So we have smaller portions of paint, all the primary colors, and then brown, white, and black for mixing. Another part of the challenge of today is that we're only going to be using 2 brushes and then our sponge. So I figured with a small canvas, maybe we can get away with only using 2 brushes rather than a whole pack of 10. And then of course we'll have the sponge, which is good for blending and stippling. It's very helpful for some tree methods. So you should have 2 brushes, your sponge, and then mixing palette, plastic mixing palette for mixing colors, or you could just use a paper plate, whatever. I would also recommend having a glass of water nearby to rinse off your brushes, and maybe some paper towel also to dry them off, so that I have a towel here that I will be using, but if you don't have an old towel, please don't do that. These paints are washable paints like the other ones that we've used in the past, so if you do get it on something, you should be able to get it off. However, I would still recommend using caution, especially if you're around white carpet, white furniture, your favorite shirts. Just try to be a little bit careful, but they are washable paints. So I think that's all of our housekeeping business, and we can get into painting. Okay, so if you hear whooshing throughout the video, that's just my furnace, so please ignore that. This is the only good place I have to film in my apartment, is in front of this old fireplace. It's the only place that works out. So for today's video, there's a Bob Ross painting that I really like because of the color scheme, and I really wanted to do something kind of based on that painting, but haven't been able to because we used neon paint last time and we had a different inspiration for session 1. So that's my inspiration for this one. If you want to Google it really quick to see kind of what it looks like, it's called Silent Forest. It's from like season 22 of his show. But there's a lot of greens involved that actually kind of look like the color of my hair. And I just really like the way that the painting looks. So that's that's my inspiration for today. Even though he starts with a black canvas and we are starting with a white canvas, that's what I'm going for. That's what I want mine to look like. So if you want to Google that finished product and see how you feel about that, go ahead. But if not, paint your own thing. If you just want this to be your background noise, that's cool. Now, the interesting thing is that we do not start out, actually, you know what? I'm not gonna open the back. We're not starting out with the color green because we only have the primary colors and then some mixing shades. And this little guy is actually harder to open than I was anticipating, which is good because it's not going to spill, but holy cow. So we have to make our own green, and hopefully enough of it that I can successfully mix up some shades and cover about 3/4 of this canvas with it. So basically the bottom of the canvas is a dark, kind of almost black, as if it's like the ground in the forest or it's very far away. And then you can see different lightened shades of green throughout the top. And then the tree trunks coming down. It's beautiful. It almost looks like birch trees when it's completed. So we're going to try to mix up some green and see how it goes. I also, the amount of paint that I've given myself is kind of a test. And if it ends up being enough paint for me, then I'm hoping that it will be enough paint for all of you. So you may end up getting slightly more paint than me, just depending on how this works out. So I need a pretty good amount of green, which means that I'm going to need a pretty good amount of blue and yellow. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm just going to get my shade of green mixed up, and then I might also put some black and white in each of these just so I can mix in the middle portion of the palette. So that is what I'm going to work on. Okay, so I have my tealy blue mixed up, and of course my computer went to sleep, so I have to wake it back up. For the majority of my canvas, I think I'm going to be using this tealy blue shade, therefore greeny blue shade, I guess. I'm mixing up a lot of it, and I am using quite a bit of those two colors of paint, blue and yellow. But you may not use as much if what you're using doesn't require that color. So this is kind of where it's at right now. Like I said, it's almost like inspired by the color of my hair. And I'm just gonna see how far I can get this color to stretch on the canvas with what I've got. So yeah, I'm thinking based on what he does, I'm probably gonna go down to about here with the color and then try to fill this bottom part in with some darker shades. I mean, I could always do the whole canvas this color and then just take some black. That's an interesting idea. Okay, let's just see how far I can get this color to stretch. So I'm gonna kind of just apply it, not with any particular, I'm not looking for it to be even because the end result is not, it's not going to be even. I'm going to add in some shading with some white and some black. So if the initial product is uneven, then that's just going to make that work a little bit easier for me because I'm not going to have to try to create a gradient if there's already a gradient. This is very teal. This is going to be a teal sky, which is fine with me. You may have been able to notice I'm not quite as traditional in my painting as old Bob Ross is. Likes to keep things pretty close to nature, whereas, you know, I think in our last one I ended up with a pink sky. So, yeah, no. Curious to know how everybody's neon paint experience went. They were tricky paints to work with, so I apologize for that. If you struggled, I did too. They were just new, hadn't used those before, and they didn't quite work the way that I was expecting them to. I think in the end it was okay. I liked the finished product, but the process was tricky. Okay, so here's where I'm at right now, kind of what I got going on. I'm gonna fill in the bottom darker for sure. I just don't know if I want it black or if I want to just add some black in with my teal and see kind of where that gets me. Now the tricky thing about only using 2 brushes, and also the fact that we have less paint, is that it is harder to pour the paint directly from these little cups into our mixing palette. So that's gonna take some finesse to try to get this black. Okay, well, I tried to add a little bit of black in with that green color I had created, and it went quite a bit darker than I was expecting. So I think I essentially just have black paint. Okay, well, it is what it is. I'm going to just try to mix these two together somewhat. It's causing quite a harsh line, which old Bob Ross definitely doesn't have a harsh line, but this is when we can use our sponge to help create more of a gradient. I just might need to mix some color or see if I can't get some of this black to soften a little bit. Okay. Yeah, it's quite a bit harsher than I was anticipating. Let's get the old sponge involved. I'm going to dampen it slightly. There we go. Okay. Just trying to soften the line between those two colors. It's not really working, but I think that we can get it there. Also, the reverse side of my sponge that doesn't have any paint on it, I can also use to, well, that helps. Okay, it's kind of swirling. That's helping. And I'm going to take that all the way down so that we don't have that harsh black starkness that I didn't want but somehow got. Okay, so we have a little bit more of a gradient. You can kind of see it's not quite as soft of a fade as Bob Ross's is, but we are going to be adding a bunch of trees on top, and just like in our first one, if something ever doesn't work out the way you had anticipated, that's okay. You can just turn it into a tree. That might be our solution, because the trees are mostly going to be started out in black, and then we'll be adding details. So just taking whatever paint was left over on my brush and just kind of putting it back, seeing what I can get to come off on the canvas. Okay, and then I'm going to take the side of my sponge here and just kind of, this sponge, this particular sponge, I didn't put in anybody's bags for this session because one side of it is melted. So I have to be careful to make sure that I'm not messing up my canvas. Okay, so we have been able to achieve more of a gradient with our brush and also with our sponge. So I think I'm happy with this as my foundation. I do think it would be fun to try to add in maybe some slightly darker greens to the top. So I'm going to mix up some more green and try to get it more, last time it was quite a bit bluer than I had anticipated. So I'm going to try to get it to look more green and add some to it. Okay, I've mixed up a very, very small amount of some green, and since my canvas is still wet, I am just going to kind of try to do a whole canvas wash with this green just to see if I can't get it looking a little bit less blue, because I like the teal, but it wasn't exactly my intention. And now of course I'm running out of this green shade that I just mixed. Oh no. So that's the problem when you only have small amounts of paint, is that you sometimes aren't sure how much you need to mix up. So I'm just trying to see if I can't get it a little bit more green than blue. Not the end of the world if it ends up being a little bit blue. Sky does crazy things in a forest, so it's very possible that this particular forest could have a bluey green tinge to it. But I do think that's a little bit less harsh. You could see this side got more green than that side because I ran out of paint. I think I can scrape a little bit more here. And I think the next step will be to add in our trees. So I'm going to use that black that I had mixed up for the bottom. And I actually think, because of the fact, oh, my computer keeps going to sleep, this is so frustrating. Because of the fact that the trees kind of disappear into the darkness at the bottom of the canvas that Bob Ross has prepared, I probably should try to deepen up just the very bottom. That way you can't quite see where the trees disappear into. They just kind of fade into, you know, the forest floor as we're imagining it to be. So let's try to see if we can't add a nice layer at the bottom that is darker, so that when we're adding our trees, they're not just big harsh lines. Oh, this is turning out well. I'm happy with this so far. I'm gonna make that more of a gradient. I just want to wait for the paint to dry a little bit. And then just slowly taking it upward to blend, so we don't have a harsh line. We don't want it to look like layers on a cake. We just want it to look like a nice gradient. In person, I swear it looks like much more of a gradient than it does on my camera for some reason. But maybe I will get my sponge involved again. And I am gonna dampen it. I feel like when you dampen it just a little bit, it helps it to not soak up so much paint. See if I can't, actually maybe I should blend upward, because I don't want to take any of the paint away that I just added. I'm just trying to blend it. Luckily I had plenty of that black color mixed up, so not a problem to go back in for more. As Bob Ross says, you can always add more, but it's I think he says it's a son of a gun trying to take it off. Oh, Bob Ross. Okay, so I feel a little bit better now that I've got a darker gradient for our trees to disappear into. Just gonna fill in some spots that got a little spotty, and I'm going to let this dry completely before we try to add the trees, because sometimes if the paint is still wet, you end up taking away what you just added. So this is gonna dry completely, and then we will start work on our trees. Okay, so my canvas is not completely dry, but I let it dry quite a bit. I'm trying to make this video shorter than the last ones, because the last ones have been incredibly long. So the way that Bob Ross does this particular painting is he kind of goes like tree by tree, which I'm not going to go tree by tree. I'm just going to decide how many trees I want and then add in some of the details, some of the, like, he does leaves and things like that. Since this is a small canvas and I don't want to overwhelm it with trees, I'm probably not going to have too many, because I do want to add in some leaf details, and I feel like those are going to add a lot of space width-wise. So I'm taking the flat brush that I've been using this whole time, and I'm going to decide I would like a tree right here. Okay, let's deepen that up a little bit. It got a little faded towards the bottom. Okay, tree number 1, check. Very, very skinny. I may need to fatten it up a bit, just a little bit, so that when I add branches, it seems like it's actually able to sustain having branches. Okay, tree, check. Let's do another tree. Get some more black on that brush. Let's do, well, you know what? Let's just do 3. Let's just have 3 trees for symmetry's sake. Why not? I know I've been trying to be not as symmetrical in my videos, but why not? Just for the sake of symmetry, let's have 3 trees. Trying to make sure that they're fading into the bottom nicely so that you don't see exactly where it starts and stops, because we don't want that. And then the last one I'm going to put over to the side a little bit more. It's going to be the shortest. Okay, so now that I've decided where my trees are, I'm going to put down my flat brush and pick up our other brush that we're using today, which is a pencil brush, because I want to deepen these a little bit. And then I'm going to start mixing the colors that I need for our like detail work, which we will also be using the pencil brush for. Now, I forgot to say in the beginning of the video, but if you have been participating with the Paint Some Happy Trees, that you have packs of brushes, other than the ones that I've included for this session, if you want to use them, you absolutely can. I'm sure you probably already are by now. Or if you have other supplies that you're thinking about integrating, go ahead and do that. I'm just going to be using these two because that's what I provided. And I don't want to use anything that everybody doesn't have. Does that make sense? Okay, so this brush is almost too fat for the, I'm trying to get the tops of my trees more skinny, and then I need this one to fade. I could see once I held it up to the camera that the bottom of that tree did not. There we go. Okay, so there's where my 3 trees are going to be. And now what old Bob Ross does next is he takes white and adds in where the light is hitting the trees. So he says that if you're right-handed, it's easier to add the light on the right side of objects. And if you're left-handed, it's easier to add light on the left side. So I'm going to take a little bit of white and start trying to add some light that's reflecting off my trees very, very delicately, because this is a kind of a fat brush. So it's going to take a very delicate hand, and I'm just going to add some white to the right side of these 3. That way it looks like there's light hitting them on that side. Okay, now as I'm getting this white ready to add in, old Bob Ross does say that you can add a little bit of red to where you're planning on putting your light, and then a little bit of blue to the other side with the white. I mean, mix it in with the white. I don't think I want to do that. I think I just want to take like the teeniest, tiniest, ittiest, bittiest little bit of white that I can get on this brush and see if I can't add it right to the side. Well, maybe I need a little bit more. Took too much off. See if I can't add it right to this right side. And I'm not going to be perfect with it. It doesn't need to be a perfect line. I just want you to see that that's the side that there's some light hitting from whatever the light source is, sun, the moon, wherever we are in this magical forest. I'm not going to take it all the way down to the bottom because it's getting so much darker down there that whatever this light source is probably wouldn't be down that far anyway. Okay. So you can see that there's some light added to that tree, and the other 2 are still awaiting it. Now, this painting, quite frankly, out of all of them that I've done, is definitely the closest to actually being inspired by a very specific Bob Ross work. It looks the most like one of his. So if you came here just for Bob Ross, you're kind of getting it. Although I'm not doing it exactly the way that he does it. This is definitely the closest we've ever come to achieving the Bob Ross look. Now, my tree is still a little bit wet, the black, so I'm actually using that right there with the white so that it does look like there's light on it, but not necessarily like a white line on the side. Because that's not really how a light source would look. It wouldn't add just a, it's very bright like that. Okay, so I got the 2. We'll just do the last one, and then we're going to add in some branches also with the pencil brush. Okay, so I've added branches to 2 of my trees. They're not perfect, so don't look at it too closely. They're kind of swooshing up rather than like straight out or down the way that you'd think like a pine tree would. I'm trying to angle them up, and it's making them look like a really creepy dead tree. Now, Bob Ross's actual painting of this, which if you Googled it, you will see, he adds in leaves. I'm kind of liking the look of this creepy dead tree thing, so I actually am leaning towards not adding any leaves to my tree. However, if you want leaves on your trees, he shows in detail how to achieve that. So let's see, I like those branches. I wish they were a little bit thinner. This pencil brush is actually almost just a little bit too thick to get a very, very thin, dead, wispy branch, but I'm gonna add some teeny tiny ones near in spaces where I haven't added one yet, or where I feel like it could use one, just to give some detail here. And then if I don't add the branches, the leaves, I'll have to decide if I'm happy with it as is, or if there's another detail that I would like to add. So I'm just adding branches where I would like them. I might go back in with a little bit more white. Actually, it would actually be best if I had like a toothpick or something to add in more white once it's completely dry in the areas where that is needed. I also am kind of tempted to add in another tree. I feel like I have a lot of space here, and I kind of do want a tree right here. Let's go ahead and I'm just gonna add another tree. All right, I have added a tree. I went back in, did some more maybe white detailing, tried to blend it with my black. Honestly, it's almost like I do need another brush for some more specific detail work, because this one isn't quite as pointed as I was hoping it was going to be. For some of these really, really tiny details, like some more branches and things like that I want to add. And as I was listening to Bob Ross talk about his painting and how sometimes his imagination just runs wild, my imagination started running wild, and I really want to add some creepy glowy red eyes somewhere down here in the darkness, because even though Halloween is over, it's always Halloween in my heart. So if you want to take yours and add in some leaves, some branches, some life, the way that Bob Ross has it, like I said, it's called Silent Forest. You can see how he does that. I would recommend using this small brush and maybe the corner of your sponge to add in, to stipple in some leaves. I'm gonna add some creepy red glowing eyes and maybe a moon. I'm thinking a moon. I'm thinking about putting a moon over in this corner. With my creepy red glowing eyes. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I will be back. I've added the moon. It's not perfectly round, because every time I try to make it perfectly round, I just keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's gonna take up the whole canvas if I keep trying to mess with it. So we have a moon, and now I'm thinking red eyes are gonna go down here. I just need to get some of my red out. Can't believe what a turn this has taken. So funny, Bob Ross is sitting there talking about sometimes he just, as he's painting, he'll just see something and then he just has to roll with it and do it. And that's kind of exactly where this painting has led me. I'm gonna rinse off my brush and we'll see if we can get some glowy red eyes. I kind of think I want them to be slanted so that you're led to believe that maybe it's a cat creature, werewolf. Who knows? Who knows what it is? But I'm just gonna Google some slanty red eyes. Find some that I like. Red glowing eyes. Maybe it's the Mothman. Could very well be Mothman in those bushes down there. We don't know. We don't know where this Silent Forest is. Okay. Let's see. There's some interesting inspiration. I would like them to look menacing. So I think I'm gonna go for something kind of like that shape with my red and my moon. Werewolf would make sense because it's a full moon according to what I painted. So I'm gonna see if I can make these tiny. And my red, you can't even see it on the camera. Can't even see it at all. Okay, well, I might as well put a little bit of white in with my red, or possibly wait until this black is completely dry before you can see. The red. Because as of right now, You really can't. Can you even see those in the corner here? No, you can't. Okay. I'm gonna improvise. All right, I tried a couple different things to get the glowy red eyes to work and I just wasn't feeling it. I might just leave it as is. I'm really liking how spooky and menacing this looks. So I think I'm gonna call mine done. It's always possible that maybe tomorrow the mood will strike me to add some glowy eyes, but for the time I am very happy with that, our final product. Oh, I should have said, if you painted on your canvas the whole time rather than holding it, that's totally fine. I like to just be have a little bit more control over it, but this canvas is perfect for the easel size. So if you've been painting like this the whole time, that is completely fine. But I think that's gonna wrap up everything that I wanna do. If you want to keep going, add some leaves, add some clouds, add some foliage. I just kind of really dig in this creepy dead forest. And like I said, I might add in some yellow or red glowing eyes. Maybe an owl would be fun. I'll just have to find a toothpick or something to add in those details. But thank you for joining me for Paint Some Happy Trees. Paint Some Tiny Spooky Trees was what I went with this time. If you'd like to share your work with me, you can on social media. You can tag the library on Instagram. You can also email it to me. That would be totally fine as well. I'm just really curious to see what everybody's come up with, but you do not have to. Please don't feel obligated. The art is for you and it is yours. So I will see everybody in the next session of Paint Some Happy Trees. Bye everyone.